The Rubin report. So shout out to David Rubin. He has a video where he says Bill Maher makes Neil deGrasse Tyson so silent with his C-word rant. I can't even say what the C. I think the new C word has changed. Like it used to be something else, something more vile, which we would not talk about.
A week later, after we had that conversation on his show, and we obviously talked about much more, and I even got him to say that if Cali brought lockdowns back and mandates and everything else, that he actually would move to Florida. That's a pretty big concession for the gold standard of liberalism in America. Here is Bill Maher on his show 1 week later, talking about the pandemic and our reaction and all the subsequent problems.
Now we're getting some information after a while. We have time to find out just how bad the collateral damage has been. Here's just a few cases. The pandemic erased 2 decades of progress in math and reading. See, right away, I got to say, this pisses me off. I see these headlines all the time. The pandemic didn't do that. The way we handled the pandemic did that. The pandemic certainly was a thing.
I will say this about Bill Maher. I mean, I appreciate the fact, and a lot of y'all probably don't even like him. A lot of people probably don't even like Bill Maher. One thing I appreciate about Bill Maher is his boldness. Regardless of what he's saying is the truth or not, and I know that's ridiculous, don't be so bold if what you're saying is a lie, and you know it's a lie. I honestly believe that every single thing he says, he believes, all right? Because he speaks in such a way that I know everything. I know everything. What do you call that? There's a word for that. He speaks in a way like, I believe what I'm saying is the smartest thing you're going to hear today. What is that called? He does that so often. And I appreciate that as a person who speaks on camera often. And I doubt myself so much that sometimes I don't say what's truly on my mind because I believe that I'm be wrong for the lack of knowledge and experience and those other things, but I do appreciate that. But what he's saying, you guys help me out with that a lot.
But let's not just say the pandemic, because it was not written in stone that we had to handle it the way we did. ACT scores are the lowest in 30 years. Anxiety and depression way up. The body mass index doubled for kids 2 to 19. Drug overdose deaths. Murders way up. Inflation at a 40-year high.
Is what he's saying so far true? If what he's saying so far is true, that shows me that sometimes he's hit and sometimes he missed. That sounds to me like a human being, because a lot of you are hit and miss too. You wouldn't say that? No? Okay. I know he has a bigger responsibility since he has a wider, a much larger platform than you all and myself, but him being hit and miss is more human than anything. But if he knows that he's lying and he's using sources that he know lies as well because they are backed by a certain agenda, then shame on him for that.
Domestic violence increased. And my favorite, car crashes. They couldn't figure this out. They're like way up, and finally, I love this. This is the expert said, you know what it is? People just went mental. They just went nuts. They're like, I'm home. The kids are here all the time. My stupid husband is here all the time. I'm just going to take it out on the highway. And they did.
They're just going to take it out on the highway. You know, actually, my wife and I, our relationship actually got a little better from us being around each other all the time. And I don't know if I thought it would or if I thought it wouldn't, but our lives have gotten a lot better from being in the home together and going through everything that's happening in the world. Like we've been able to help one another a lot. Hey, what's up? I'm Puff Puff. How you doing?
Is here all the time. I'm just going to take it out on the highway. And they did.
What you don't have is the benefit of the alternative scenarios to see how they would have come out, to be able to judge whether what did happen was a lesser evil than other options that would have unfolded. And so suppose...
So you don't have any comparison. He's saying you have all of this stuff that's documented that leads toward, you know, all these atrocities and people getting worse or doing bad things during this whole situation of the C word, but you have nothing to compare it to. How y'all feel about that?
Well, actually we do, because other countries handled it differently. Sweden didn't handle it differently. Some of the places with the lowest vaccination rates turned out to have the best results.
With really low population densities.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there are different factors. There are.
Yes, but I think that matters.
Yes, of course it matters.
It's a sort of a different factor.
Who's winning this argument so far, folks? Please let me know. Who's winning this argument so far? Because they both are coming with it. They both have picked a side, and they are coming with it, man. Of course, the Neil deGrasse Tyson, he don't want you to land on anything unless you consider everything. And that right there is, in my opinion, is not realistic. You can't consider everything. You got to go off the stuff that's right there in your face sometimes. But I think it's meaningful in this conversation.
You just said
I'm looking through an elevator in New York City to 15 people.
Okay,
right
but
here.
you just said that we can't make any judgments because we don't live in an alternative universe where America handled it differently. And I'm saying other places handled it differently. That does matter.
It's a legitimate.
Wow, they going back and forth. I love it.
I think it's a legitimate conversation to have. You remember there was talk of herd immunity and how we get there at the outset, and people were shouted down for even raising that prospect. I'm not the scientist you are, but in retrospect,
they shouted down the idea that it might have escaped from a lab.
Right.
That was somehow racist,
right,
as opposed to somehow if you believed that it came from the wet markets, you were a Democrat, and if you believed it came from a lab, you were a Republican. This is ridiculous.
Now, I don't really buy in too much into to Bill Maher's comedy style. I really don't. But I do enjoy his boldness. And like I said earlier in the video, I believe he's hit and miss. But to see him stand up against Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a brainiac. This dude is a crazy brainiac. Nah, he's not crazy, but just that's just how he moves, how he thinks. But I think he's so far removed from any and everything because he look at like science is everything. Everything is science. Have you considered? 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 And I'm like, have you considered? Based off of what you consider, what do you have to say? And sometimes the people with the most questions are not really the smartest in that particular conversation or subject matter. They're just, it's like a cop-out. It's like a cop-out, always presenting another angle. Can I present this angle? Can I present this angle? What about this angle? Because maybe they just don't buy into your boldness and how you're speaking about it. And they just want to shut you down with questions. And the questions are not answers, obviously. They're just questions. And you need, I don't know, I'm running my mouth too much, but hopefully y'all understand what I'm saying.
So that is good, right? It's good when people, and I know a lot of you, and when I talk about Bill Maher, I always get a lot of comments. People are like, why are you still talking about him? He's never going to get there. He voted for all Democrats last time around. But if someone like him talking about some of this stuff, getting to the truth, better late than never, right? Because he's supporting, as far as I can tell, he's supporting still a guy like Gavin Newsom, who is still for all of these things, or at least did all of these things in the past, right?
Does Florida have less death than California? Because I do know that, and that will be a comparison to have. Florida versus Cali when it comes to this. That's a great, and who threw that out there? Who wanted to compare Florida to Cali? Was that Forrest the Deep or was that someone else? Yeah, because that's a great comparison right there. I like that comparison.
But him talking about it, waking up some people is good.
I enjoyed that. Hopefully y'all did too. Please let me know whatever y'all want me to know about it because I like your input. Your input is necessary. I learn from your input, okay? Yeah. And we're going to listen. And beneath this video, very well might have a note from the C word 19 that says, get the latest information from CDC about C word 19 because the information you might have received is frowned upon in this establishment, which is why I don't even like covering this topic for some. It's always something, bro. It's like you can't even speak on it. You got to be quiet. Shut up. Don't say that word. The C word is the new C word. Yeah, I know what the old one was. And I'm not going to say that one. But feel free to let me know whatever y'all want me to know in the comments. and we will move forward from there. 12 million total in Cali, 7 million total in Florida. You know what? I said I'm not going to talk about it, and I'm not.